Attention. Due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 115 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And this is going to be a great episode, I think, Tim, because this is the first time, I believe, in Civil Gore history that our feature film is a documentary.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know we've talked about horror documentaries on the podcast plenty of times before, but I don't think we've ever made one the subject of our feature film.
No, and we might have found the ultimate horror documentary.
You guys, oh man, are you in for a treat with this one?
Yes.
That'll come later in the episode. We'll promise we'll get to that. And we also have a special, very special interview coming up that ties in with that film that you guys are absolutely not going to want to miss.
Nope, not at all.
So let's get right into the fun, guys. This is our first chop. All right, Brian. So first off, we got to crack the beer. And tonight, I'm opening up one of my favorites. Of course, I'm talking about the cousin to the Southern Tier Pumpkin, and that would be the Southern Tier Warlock.
Okay, now this is creepy, because that is the exact beer that I picked tonight.
Oh, really? Well, that's because great minds think alike, I mean.
Absolutely. And yes, and this is my favorite. I mean, now how I do enjoy, of course, the original Pumpkin. But as you know, we do enjoy our stouts, and this one is like Tim said, it's the cousin, and it's a limited, so it's a little harder to find sometimes than the pumpkin. You know, it can be challenging at points, and this one it's an Imperial Pumpkin Stout Warlock. And did you know they have supposedly this year a Pumpkin Nitro?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
No, I saw that on their site. I didn't really get to look because I just discovered it just before the show. So I didn't get a chance to do a little research on it, like when it's coming out, where you can find it, but I will surely do that. That is going to be my homework after this episode.
Wow, yeah. I still haven't tried the cold brew coffee, whatever. Oh,
pumpkin. Yeah, that one was good. I got to see if I can find that. I had it last year. I got to see if they did that this year again.
Yeah, so I think they did, because I think somebody reached out to me about that, but I'm going to have to track all of these down. I found the Warlock actually very easily this year, which was kind of strange, because usually I don't see it as much as the Pumpkin. I've got to track down all the varieties this year. I have not, as you know, Brian, I've stayed away from the pumpkin beers up to this point. This is actually the first one I've had this year.
Oh,
I've been trying to restrain myself.
I'm on like number 5 or 6 different ones already.
I know. I've gone a little crazy on the other pumpkin spice stuff. I've gone a little overboard there, so I'm trying to hold back a little bit. And
you see, I went the other way. Because of my new, like, more of a healthier eating shtick. I'm not buying every pumpkin candy. Like, I literally walk by an entire stack of there must have been 50 bags of the pumpkin Kit Kats, which I had last year, and I'm like, man. I'm not gonna have it, so I left it. I did buy a Kodiak pumpkin pancake mix, which I think I'm gonna bring. That's what I'm gonna bring to when we come visit you guys in a couple weeks, and we'll make that one morning. I think that'll be a good be a good treat.
Yeah,
I think, and the kids will probably like that. Yeah, it'll be great. Actually, maybe buy a second box, because I noticed it's only 10 servings, and I know the 5 and 5 will be taken up by us pretty much, so we want for everyone else. I'm gonna pick up a second box of that. It's actually pumpkin flax, so it'll be good. It'll digest well.
When you come down south, you have to cook up a mess of pancakes.
Yes, I will cook up a mess of pancakes to show Tim and Olivia their hospitality. Thank you for their hospitality. And I have a little treat for the kids I'm going to bring, as I already know what I'm bringing for them. We already have a couple of little treats for you guys.
Oh,
we're collecting. We're starting a Tim and Olivia box. So.
Yeah, you guys know you're always welcome. You don't have to do that. But
I know. But I don't like. I was already told not to come empty-handed, and so with this season, it's easier because we know Tim and his pumpkin fandom. So it's easy.
Well, we bought some of that cucumber vodka from Durham Distillery.
Oh.
I think I talked about it on the show when we went to Kev's bachelor party and made some Moscow mules with that the other night. Those are great. So we still have some of that left you guys can try. We have some good stuff. So it's
I got to tell you, unfortunately though, this is kind of funny because I'll be, we'll be traveling down obviously in Tim's area, but basically due to wedding obligations, I can't. We're Julie and I are actually doing something really cool, but not be able to do it with Tim and his family, and that's we booked that haunted pub crawl of Wilmington.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do that, and it's a shame I can't do it this year, but. I mean, we're going to have fun, too. We're doing the rehearsal dinner, and that's going to be a big party and stuff.
Oh, yeah, no. It's understandable. It's just we're getting in on that Friday, so we wanted to plan something to do, and then we'll probably see, of course, we'll see you guys the rest of the time.
Yeah, you guys have a blast.
And then on Sunday. And, we got to book that, our battleship thing. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll give more details on that as that approaches, and then afterwards we'll have a recap report on all that.
Yes, we'll have a Brian and Julie trip to Timville.
That'll be fun. A first. You guys have been down here before, actually, but it was not really to do anything. It was just basically to sleep. So we haven't really gotten to show you guys around. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we did not really get to see Wilmington at all.
So I can't wait. That's gonna be fun.
Yes, same here.
All right, so my project, 40 Years of Terror project, continues. This year, it was my birth year, 1974, and I chose one that I had never seen, and I'm so glad I watched it because it's fantastic. It is called MADHOUSE, and it stars the fantastic Vincent Price and the great Peter Cushing in all his linen and lavender glory.
And do you realize you could have used that as one of your horror challenge?
Did you realize I did use that for my horror challenge?
Oh, okay, so you did. All right.
Okay, I snuck one in a little early, guys. Don't tell.
No, we said you could start a little early. We did say you could start a day early. So
well, I had to because I've got days I'm not going to be able to watch anything, like the wedding day and that kind of stuff.
Right. So, yes, we did say you could start a little early. It's okay. You just can't go past the October 31st. Yeah. So, because I was looking at that right when I saw that, I said, oh, is Tim using that for his horror? Because I already have mine picked out, I saw. But I'm looking at Tim's, I'm like, is he going to use that? Or am I going to steal it from him? Because now...
Well, it's really good. It's Vincent Price plays. Granted, this is a little bit later in his career, early 70s. He was primarily 60s. So he plays, I don't want to say washed up, even though some of the summaries said that. He's a aging horror star. So playing very close to his actual role at the time.
But do you get the full him or do you get it half price?
It was full price, believe me.
Okay.
But he played this. He was famous for this character called Dr. Death. And you may have seen pictures. I had seen pictures of him in this makeup before, not knowing which movie it came from. But it's basically him in this skull makeup, which looks kind of cool because it goes over his mustache, which is kind of funny. But he said this really cool Dr. Death makeup. And so he is... he's famous for this role, and he goes on talk shows to talk about, how he was this famous horror star back in the day. And mysteriously, women and co-stars start turning up dead. And so now you get into the psychological thriller of, is Vincent Price doing this as Dr. Death? Because this killer is running around in this Dr. Death mask. Is this Vincent Price? Does he have some kind of split personality? Is it somebody else? And there's a whole lot of twists and turns, and it was absolutely fantastic. Peter Cushing's terrific as always in it. And it just has that great vibe of being a little bit meta because it's about an aging horror star, and it stars Vincent Price. So I would highly, highly recommend MADHOUSE. It's a lot of fun. The title's kind of misleading because there's nothing MADHOUSE about this. There is a brief talk about how he used to be in an insane asylum kind of thing. But that's like the only connection to the title there is. So the title's meaningless. And that might be why I've never seen this one before. It just sounds like such a generic title. And but yeah, fantastic movie, especially if you're a Vincent Price fan like I am and a Peter Cushing fan. You're going to love this one. Go see it, MADHOUSE. It's on Prime, so no excuse.
Nice.
And next up one, Brian, you have not gotten a chance to see yet, and that is MIDSOMMAR.
No. It's arriving, though, next week, so I'll be able to see it next week.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about it in our Discmemberment, that great Blu-ray that's coming out next week. Yeah, MIDSOMMAR was one that I really wanted to see, being such a fan of Hereditary. And this is, of course, directed by Ari Aster, that did Hereditary. This was his follow-up film. I really wanted to see it in the theater, didn't get a chance to. Finally got a chance to rent it, and I was really blown away by this movie. And I know this film is going to be polarizing because you see it in the reviews. There are people who absolutely hated it. There are people who absolutely loved it, and there's all levels in between. And it's one of those movies, I think you have to be somewhat a fan of 70s horror or Hammer horror to really appreciate it, because it, again, we talk about the slow burn all the time, and I hate saying it over and over and over again. It's a very slow-paced film. The director's cut's going to be even more slow-paced. But it's one of those films that gets under your skin, and if you allow that pace to build those layers that it needs to build to make the creepiness that much more effective, I think you'll absolutely love it like I did. But it does require patience. And I will have to say, the Florence Pugh, who plays the lead in this movie, is absolutely astounding.
She's just great in general.
Yeah, there are some scenes in this that were so critical. Like, they would have lost all impact without her performance, her particular performance. Like, that's how good she was. Like, she basically made those scenes make the emotional impact that they needed to be in the film. And I'm telling you, there's some stuff in here that's still sticking with me days later.
Oh, wow.
So it is one of those movies. Again, like I said, it's going to be polarizing. I almost wish at some point we can do this one as a feature so we can talk about it later on down the road when we can give spoilers and that kind of thing, because I really wanted to discuss it with somebody and see how they thought about it. But I've seen some very polarizing comments on the message boards about this one, but I absolutely loved it.
We could probably do it in like November, I would say. After I'll watch it, and then we can do it in November, because by that point it's been on like demand, it's been on Blu-ray, and a lot of people probably who have wanted to see it would have seen it by then.
Yeah, so if you guys have not seen it yet and want to see it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And I will have to say, this is one of those movies I'm not recommending because of a particular plot or anything like that. I'm recommending it because it's the work of a director who is doing his vision the way he wants to do it, and Hollywood be damned, and mainstream audience be damned. He's doing what he wants to do, and that's very refreshing to me in this day and age where there's so much cookie-cutter stuff being thrown out there in theaters. This one has the director's fingerprints all over it, every single scene. So if you appreciate that kind of filmmaking, I think you'll really like it.
Nice. Yeah, and it's funny, he's gotten away with it for 2 movies.
Yeah, somehow. All right, so Brian, Stranger Things Season 4 officially announced.
Yeah, surprise.
Surprise,
you didn't know that was coming. Yeah,
and the catchphrase is, "We're not in Hawkins anymore," which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, they had a cool little promo. I mean, I had heard rumors of that anyway. They had the Duffers in an interview, and they basically said, one of their goals was to experience, this world of Stranger Things outside of Hawkins. I mean, they teased it a little bit with, I guess Dustin going off to camp, and they had people, in season 3, if you haven't seen it yet, they're separated in parts and stuff, and so, and obviously the teaser at the end leads you to believe that it's not going to take place necessarily in all of Hawkins. I mean, I'm sure it will start there. I mean, obviously, and also the ending, certain people just may not be in Hawkins. We'll just leave it at that. If you haven't seen it yet. Then again, if you haven't seen it yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Because season 3 was, I thought, the best yet.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But yeah, so it had a great little teaser that they shot online. It has a cool little, definitely a tease of the Upside Down as usual. And so just go check it out. They tweeted it out. And so there's no release date as far as I know yet. I probably, if I had to guess, I'd think either probably next October, or possibly even longer, like maybe the following April, like April 2021. Who knows? It's like, I mean, they got to film it soon because these kids are going to get really old fast.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Next up, the Banana Splits movie, which we've talked about, we've both been able to see, is coming to Sci-Fi on October 12th. So you guys who have not seen it yet, that's your opportunity to catch it on Sci-Fi.
Yep.
And this one I did not know, Brian. Tony Todd heavily rumored to be portraying Candyman in Jordan Peele's reboot. That was quite a shock to me.
Yeah, well, he was listed, we knew he was in the cast for some time now, and I guess Bloody Disgusting had found out, I guess, from a couple of sources that reliable sources that they said that's who he was playing. However, they couldn't find it, I guess, definitively, and they searched and searched and searched, and as they put it, just as they had given up another credible source that they rely on a lot had come back and said that's exactly what's going to happen. So they still left a question mark at the end of it on their tweet about it. But, I mean, it seems silly not to, if you have Tony Todd in that film, not to have him as Candyman. But You know what? I put my complete faith in Jordan Peele with whatever he does. I'm sure it will be the right decision. Maybe it'll be something where there's like a different, we don't know what how the plot will actually be, as far as I know, right? I don't think they've released exactly what's going on. Maybe it's going to be like he'll be Candyman in a flashback, and this is a newer Candyman. Who knows? But then maybe that's where the question is coming from, is that maybe he's in it as Candyman, but also someone else is Candyman at the same time, because it could be a flashback. We don't know.
This is going to be anyway. the Santa Claus, where Santa Claus dies and passes the mantle on to a different Santa Claus. I mean, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Could be that. Yeah.
Like the Santa Claus of Candyman. Yeah.
Yes, and then we'll get into... Does that mean we're going to start talking about Tony Todd's sack? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, we're getting close to Christmas already, so...
That is true.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's sack will make more appearances in the podcast.
He'll be back.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
And Brian, you'll have to tell me about this one, because I have not had a chance to watch it yet, but I've heard people buzzing about it, and that is the Netflix show Marianne.
Yeah, it's I've only watched a few episodes. It's really, really good. Really, really creepy. It's got a lot of like Stephen King vibes to me. I mean, there's a little bit of feels like somewhat of like, there's almost like a little Misery feel to it. There's a Losers Club and It kind of feeling to it. There's a lot of similarities, like different plot points that you've seen in other things that are all kind of tied together in the show. Super creepy imagery, and thank God, because the only gripe I have about it is it's dubbed.
Yeah.
And that kind of like the main actress that's in it looks like she's giving a great performance, but the voiceover just doesn't match the emotion.
Yeah,
to me,
just common. Yeah,
for the main. Yeah, I mean, it's got. So I'd love to see it in French and watch it with subtitles, but I don't think that's available. I haven't tried yet. Sometimes you can maybe tweak Netflix to just if I can maybe air it in another language, and then it'll do the English subtitles. I don't know, but I still enjoyed it. It didn't take enough away that didn't want me to do it, but you definitely have to see this. It's really, really cool. It's really good, and definitely some good Tim jump scares in there.
Nice. All right, and then lastly here, we have a new line of DC horror comics is coming out, produced by Joe Hill. DC is closing their Vertigo line, which brought a Swamp Thing and some other horror-adjacent type titles. But this is going to be a brand new horror line, and it's going to be multiple series. And the first 5 initial series have been announced. There's a Basket Full of Heads, which premieres October 30th. And then the other series are going to come out in the following months. Now, some of these will be limited series, to 6 issues or whatever, but all of them look really interesting. Like I said, a Basket Full of Heads. There's one called the Dollhouse Family. There's one called the Low, Low Woods. One called Daphne Byrne, and one called Plunge, which Joe Hill says is his homage to The Thing. So all of these look fantastic. Now, Joe Hill is not writing all of these. He's writing Basket Full of Heads, and I think he's writing Plunge. But there are some other really notable horror comic folks in the industry that are helming some of these other series. I think they're all going to be fantastic if Joe Hill has his stamp of approval on them. And they're actually going to be called Hill House Comics. So this is his line of comics, and I'm a big DC fan anyway. I've always have been. So I can absolutely not wait. I'm going to be buying all of these as they come out, and I will give you reviews of them as they come out later on this year and as we go into next year. So
I'm glad we got some details, because I remember I think we teased this a while back where we heard this was going to happen, but we didn't know much about it. So this is cool now that we got all the details on this.
Yeah, and if you guys go search it, you can actually read the synopsises of all of these series. I didn't have time to list them all in the rundown, but they sound really, really good. All of them do. All right, now Brian, this brings us to a new segment. I don't know that we're going to do this every week, but we will have it on occasionally if we come up with some good ones. And we're going to call it our interactive question of the week. And this is where we're going to come up with a question, hopefully submitted by you guys, and we're going to solicit you guys for answers to this. Future segments will probably ask you guys to write back on Facebook or Gmail or whatever and let us know your thoughts so we can read them on the air. But this week we had a really interesting one come up on Twitter. Somebody asked about, and I just thought it was a fascinating question. I thought it was a great question to ask me and Brian, because Brian doesn't have children. I do. So we're coming at it from two different viewpoints. And the question was, should scare actors take it easy on children at Halloween events?
Right. And this was sent to us. They asked us, it was TravelBud710, one of our followers and listeners. And they asked that because there was a video going around in particular where there was there was like this scare actor that was like darting at all these kids, including a baby in a stroller. What it looked like. Well, I don't know if it's a baby, but it was a stroller. So it brings up and a lot of people were commenting on it, and there were a ton of mixed reviews. It was a heated Twitter conversation. So we kind of were like, we were trying to do our best to answer, but it's difficult on Twitter, because you only have so many characters, number one, and sometimes the exactly what you're trying to say gets a little lost in trying to type it out. So we figured we'll talk about it on the podcast. Then I came up with, I'm like, this is going to be it's probably not going to be the first time a question like this comes up. And it's, Coaster Radio used to do this with their interactive question. We heard a lot of podcasts will do it. So we thought this will be another fun way to engage people. So, of course, write back or just tweet back at us about it. But, my thought is mixed. So the one experience I had, and, we've been there with, theme park families. And they went through the haunts. I mean, they're a little on the older side, and those kids are very mature for their age also. And they seem to handle it fine, but I mean, the question was more so not so much about the kids handling the haunt, but should the scare actors change? And it's kind of mixed. Like, I definitely think that was way poor judgment what the guy did towards a stroller, because I mean, and sometimes, there are parents that just don't have the option of being able to have their kids watched, and they need to take them to places. So yes, the parents use their judgment, and in this case, they were kind of off to the side. They were not going through the middle of the scare zone, and the scare actor went after him. So while I don't think they should take it easy on people that are kids that are definitely participating in it, I don't think they should go after people that are clearly off to the fringe of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. A perfect example, again, that we've mentioned before is when we went down to Halloween Horror Nights, we took my kids the first night because we didn't have babysitters. And the plan was not to go through haunts that night anyway. But we figured the scare zones would be safe enough. They like horror stuff. They could handle it.
Yeah.
And they did handle it. They were fine. And the scare actors, to their credit, were amazing down there because while they would do a little bit of a scare towards the kids, they would always like come up and give them a high five afterwards. Like, hey, I'm not really evil. Like, I'm just,
right.
This is part of the fun. And the kids totally liked that. And they really appreciated that. And that was a judgment call on the part of the scare actor, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, they were top notch. I mean, I couldn't say enough about Universal. Their scare actors in general were just great.
Yeah.
And the fact that they used the judgment in the middle without sacrificing the entertainment for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, my thought of it is this. I know there's one camp of people that say, well, if you bring your kids to a horror event, you're a bad parent. And like Brian said,
I don't agree with that at all.
I don't agree with that at all either, because as a parent, you find yourself often in situations where somebody from the outside would look at it as you being a bad parent. And in your mind, it's my kid's having a bad day or something unexpected occurred. You just don't know the circumstances that are going on. I've had times where my kids are throwing a freaking crying temper tantrum in the middle of Walmart. And you see those parents all the time. And their first inclination is, oh, why can't that parent control their kid kind of thing? And it's one of those things that until you're there, you don't realize that some days this stuff just happens.
Yeah, they're kids. They don't know.
Yeah, there's no logic to it. And there's sometimes you just can't control that and prepare for it. And I think it's the same way here. Now, granted, is bringing a baby to a haunt a little questionable? Yeah, I understand maybe in some cases. But like Brian said, there's some cases where there just was no other option, or there is some extenuating circumstance in which that baby found itself in a horror event, and we can't be so quick to judge somebody without knowing the full story.
Right.
Theme parks are supposed to be places where entire families can have fun. If it's an adult-only event, make it an adult-only event and be done with it. But if you're going to let everybody in, you have to be able to accommodate everybody, in my opinion. If the park is going to let people in of any age, then they have to be able to accommodate that. And part of that, I would think, would be the scare actors using their judgment not to try to psychologically damage tiny children when they have the option to go after whoever they want to go after, kind of thing. I mean, that's a judgment call on their part. I personally feel, yes, scare actors should take it easy on children if they see them at a Halloween event, because I don't see the need for needless cruelty to a child for no reason.
Right. I mean, it's not like they're all kids there. There were plenty of adults in that area and plenty of teens in that area.
Right. And
so why he darted towards the stroller, I don't get.
And even if you are one of those people that thinks, well, parents should never take their kids to a Halloween event, you don't punish the parent by going after the child.
Right, exactly.
You know, maybe you could argue maybe that was a poor judgment call, but the child had no choice in it, you know, so don't punish the child for the parent's sins. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a mixed thing. Every parent will tell you, you have to know your kid. There are 5-year-olds that could probably walk through some of those houses with no problem. There are 10-year-olds that would be psychologically scarred just from seeing a clown at the end of the sidewalk inside the park. So you just don't know the kids. No kids are made exactly the same. So I think you kind of have to err on the side of caution here and say, you know, just try to make it fun for everybody and don't just needlessly go after young kids.
Yeah. I mean, my niece is my little niece. She's about to turn 3. And one of her favorite things is someone to jump out and startle her. She loves getting scared. She has no fear. She goes on any rides. I took her on all the rides that she was tall enough for at the little theme park near them. She loves when you hide around the corner and you jump out and go boo. And so it's like, I mean, would I take her to a haunt? No. But, but I know that probably when she gets a little bit older, she'd probably be into that. She'd probably dig that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She likes, but that's. But in that video in particular, which was what sparked this conversation, there was a blatant judgment call made by that scare actor that did not need to be made. He didn't need, the judgment call didn't be made, but he did not need to make the decision he made. It wasn't distracting from anybody else because he chose to go away from actually the people that probably would have appreciated the jump and the scare at them. So I don't get it. And it's like, you're not going to give a little child. You figured, I know they have those no boo necklaces they call, where it's like the little glowing pumpkin for certain kids where they know the scare actors are supposed to avoid them. In this case, it's like, do you really, as a parent, would I think to even put a no boo necklace on a baby? On a child in a stroller? No, because I was like, if I was a scare actor, I wouldn't do it on just as out of because I have a heart, but also because to me it's wasted on them. They're not gonna know what that is.
No.
Anyway. You're just wasting your energy. You're jumping and traumatizing a kid for no reason, who, for all we know, could have been asleep. I mean, you're not gonna see the kid's eyes open in the dark in that kind of costume. So I mean, there was just many judgment calls things, So it's kind of one of those things. It's like, yes, I do think they should take it easy on kids when, if there's obviously the age matters. So it's like, to just say blanket kid, well, that's not right, because, kid could be up to 11 and if I was 11 at that and going through these haunts, they didn't have this kind of stuff when I was a kid. They had a couple of haunted houses and maybe stuff like that, but they definitely didn't have Fright Fests and Halloween Horror Nights and any kind of these big events that I was aware of to go to. And I wouldn't but I would have loved it. When I was growing up, there was a thing that I used to see commercials for. It was called the Haunted Mansion of Long Branch, and it was a permanent installation in New Jersey. And they used to have this thing. A friend of mine went, and I was always so jealous because I always wanted to go. And it was literally a pay one price thing, and you'd walk through this haunt, and they'd have rats, and people would chase you around. And I'm like, I want to do that, and I was 8 or 9. So if I went there at 8 or 9, I wouldn't want them taking it easy on me, but I also wanted to go. So that, what Tim said, know your kid comes into play also. So
yeah, and one thing I wanted to say about not being quick to judge, I know when the first night we were at Halloween Horror Nights, we were using the parent swap at the haunt. So we would wait in line with the kids, but when we got up to the entrance, they weren't going through the haunt. We were just, handing them off and doing a parent swap. And boy, I got some dirty, dirty looks in that line. holding the kids as we were waiting in line for that haunt. But you would get these people, like, I could hear them muttering under their breath, I can't believe they brought that kid to the haunt kind of thing. The kids weren't going in the haunt. But, you're so quick to judge somebody. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Don't automatically assume that it's a case of bad parenting. In this case, we were just doing a parent swap. That's it. The kids loved the scare zones and they enjoyed everything else about it. So, especially
there was one themed to toys, for God's sake. That Chucky room, they would love that.
Oh man, area. They absolutely. That's all they talked about when they got back home is how much fun they had in those scare zones. So
yeah.
All right, so that was our interactive question, I should say. And if you guys want to chime in on that question, please feel free to send us an email or write us on Facebook or Twitter and that kind of stuff, and let us know your thoughts on should scare actors take it easy on children. And we'll have another interactive question here soon for you guys.
Yeah, and thanks to TravelBud 710 again for putting that out there. Gave us that great idea to do.
That was
this
great
segment.
All right, guys, so let's get to our Blu-ray releases for October 8th, 2019. This is our Discmemberment.
Wait, no, please, God. No, don't cut off my...
Okay, Brian, first, a couple of re-releases. In October, you tend to get all of these weird combo pack type things coming out. So this week we have an Us and Get Out double feature, which makes quite a bit of sense, as those are two Jordan Peele movies. And then we have the Conjuring 6 film collection, which I'm actually kind of wanting to pick up because this has The Nun, Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, and all 3 Annabelle movies.
See, I have them all, and including the Annabelle Comes Home, which is I already pre-ordered on Amazon. So for me, I can't buy this, but
for me, it would be great. I don't have any of those. So
yes.
That would be great for me. Well, depending on the cost, we'll see how it is. And if they include the features that are available in the single disc versions, I didn't go that far. So
right, but also, isn't there like a Nun 2 coming out, Second to None, as we discussed, right? There's a sequel coming out.
Oh, yeah.
There's that coming out. So you're going to end up buying the box set of 6, and then followed by, you'll have to buy the Nun separate, and you'll have that weird section in your Blu-ray.
I think the actual title was Nun 2 Bad Habits.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right. So first up, we have Lionsgate with the film we talked about earlier in our first chop, Midsommar, and this is a director's cut, and I believe it adds about 45 minutes. It's a pretty significant director's cut. It doesn't change the plot significantly from what I've read, but it does add more character detail and, makes a long movie even longer, I guess you could say. But
so is that the one I should watch when I get it? Just go
all in. From everything I've read, the director's cut is the better cut of the movie. Although the theatrical version is not bad at all. Like I said, I loved it. But the director's cut really, for those of you guys that have the patience to just totally absorb this movie, the director's cut is what you're going to want to watch. This one is we didn't talk about what the movie's about earlier in my first chop because I knew we were getting to it here, but a couple travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled midsummer festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Now, Grant, who's a listener of the show that I work with, he has a friend who lives in Sweden, so I told him to ask her if, or tell her that he really enjoyed the documentary they made about her home country. Midsummer. Seriously, he was going to ask her if does this stuff really go on.
If it does, I'll be a little afraid to visit.
Yeah. This one has 2 special features: a "Let the Festivities Begin" manifesting Midsummer featurette and a "Bear in a Cage" promo. I don't know what that means, but there you have it.
Well, since I didn't see the movie, it really is lost on me on that one.
Yeah. So. Next up, we have Annabelle Comes Home from Warner Brothers, and Brian, I just watched this one today. Actually, again, another one I snuck in on my horror movie project. Don't tell anybody, but I needed a killer doll movie, so what can I say? And it also satisfied another achievement, which I'm not going to tell you. By the way, guys, I'm doing a self-imposed rule this year, and you guys do not have to abide by this by any means.
No, because this is not an official rule. This is a Tim.
This is a Tim rule. This is a personal goal. You know how I like my little goals. My goal was to not use any movie for more than 2 objectives. So every movie I'm watching, I'm only going to use up to satisfy up to 2 objectives. Because you can't just do one objective because there's like 40 some objectives.
Yeah, there's too many. We made that purposely that way.
Yeah, so you have to do some of them. You have to double up some of them. But I was like, you know what? It would be too easy for me to find a movie that satisfied like 6 objectives, and I don't want to do that. I want to try to kind of even it out a little more. So that's what I did. So this one, of course, stars Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, McKenna Grace, who's fantastic. I was wondering where I knew her from, and it turns out she was the daughter in that Kiefer Sutherland show, Designated Survivor. That's where I knew her from.
Okay.
So while babysitting the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, a teenager and her friend unknowingly awaken an evil spirit trapped in a doll.
Oh, you know what? She's in that movie Gifted. She was in the Tanya Harding movie. She was in. She actually plays that little rival to young Sheldon. She's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
actually.
she's like real popular right now. Yeah.
Oh, and she was actually young Carol Danvers also in Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Haunting of Hill House she was in.
Oh, no wonder. I've seen her
in
everywhere.
A lot of stuff. Ready Player One. She was in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
This one does have some good features as deleted scenes and 3 featurettes: The Artifact Room and the Occult, The Light and the Love, and behind the scenes, The Ferryman Demon, The Bloody Bride, and The Werewolf. And by the way, guys, again, another horror movie challenge thing I'm going to throw in there. I am going to start tweeting October 1st, which is tomorrow as we're recording. Yes. I'm going to start tweeting out like I did last year, each movie that I watch for the horror movie challenge and just my short little blurb about it. So be on the lookout for that on our Twitter feed.
Nice.
All right, this next one up, Brian, I really almost watched this one for my birth year objective and I'm still going to watch it to satisfy another objective, but this one's called From Beyond the Grave. This is a Warner Brothers release. It's directed by Kevin Connor, 1974. And this one, I cannot believe I have not heard of this one before because it's an anthology starring Peter Cushing, Ian Bannon, and Ian Carmichael. It's an anthology of 4 short horror stories revolving around a British antique shop and its mysterious owner. So this looks incredible.
Yes. I ordered it because of the trailer.
Wow.
I actually ordered it tonight while I was doing the run. We were going through the rundown and I was watching the trailers. I actually ordered it.
Is it that expensive? I mean, how much is it?
$17.
Wow, I may have to get this one then.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. For $17 with the look and feel of this trailer, and it has a poor man's Rebel Wilson in one of the shots. So that was kind of funny.
This is not one you can watch for free anywhere right now. I think it's only for rent.
None of these are actually. For once today, like I think every one of these on our list. I was looking to see if you can get it because we promised you we'd look that up, and most of them were all. I mean, they're available for Prime, but you have to buy them or rent them.
Right.
You can't there's no free streaming versions of these.
Yeah, I didn't see any special features on this one because this is like a Warner Archive release.
Yeah, it looks like it's pretty bare bones, but it looks like such a cool movie. I had to own it. I'm gonna get this.
It does have a brand new remaster, so you are getting
right.
A good quality transfer there. So
and Donald Pleasance is in this too.
Yeah,
it's like I noticed in the teaser it showed his name, and so it was
Yeah, it looks cool. Great. I mean, that's right up my alley. A 70s anthology horror movie with Peter Cushing. Come on.
And it's from your birth year, too.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Next up is Nightmare Beach from 1989. This is one of the 2 Kino Lorber releases we're talking about this week. Directed by James Justice and Umberto Lindsay. Starring Nicholas Datoff, Sarah Buxton, and Raleigh Valverde. After a criminal motorcycle rider is put to death, he comes back from the dead to seek murderous revenge against the residents of a Florida town. And this one looks crazy from the trailer. It looks like typical 80s crazy.
Yeah, but this one is it somehow stars John Saxon in it, which but based on the trailer, it almost looks like he doesn't survive the movie. Spoiler alert! But
if you can tell what's going on in that trailer,
right? It's super cheesy. It looks completely like a mess of a movie. As I put here, it looks like the worst of the beach comedies. And it has no rhyme or reason in this trailer. And it looks like every death is the same. I don't get it. I really don't understand who made this trailer.
Yeah.
But,
and this one actually has some good features. As a brand new 4K remaster, audio commentary by film historian, Sam Dayan? I haven't heard of him yet.
Well, he's probably because he was the only person on the planet out of the film historian to review this film.
Oh, Nightmare Rock, an interview with composer Claudio Simonetti. both English and Italian audio. So if you don't like dubbing, Brian, you can get the original Italian for this one, and a reversible.
Oh, I can't wait.
reversible Blu-ray art and a theatrical trailer. And the next one up from Kino Lorber is Baby Blood from 1990, directed by Alain Roback, starring Emmanuel Escarou, Christian Seneger, and Jean-Francois Galot. And or Jalot. I don't know. This one, Brian, is your guess.
Great.
You have to guess what is Baby Blood from 1990.
Okay, looking at this first, I thought I looked quickly and I thought it said baby's blood. So I was thinking it was one of those things where they like Rosemary's Baby kind of thing where they need a blood of a or not, but remember this baby's blood, or what was the line she said? And so I was like thinking it was something along the lines of that. But it's, I don't think it's that now because it's baby blood. So, I don't know. Is it about a infant vampire?
That's not bad.
Really?
It's not bad. You're that might be the closest you've ever come.
Oh my God, is that sad? That guess.
Yeah. So when a strange creature crawls into a woman's uterus, she becomes a killer in order to feed the tiny terror growing within her.
So I was,
That sounds kind of vampiric to me. I think you were pretty close on this one.
Yeah, I'd say about 70%.
Now, it was a bit of a softball. I will give you that. But this one has a couple special features here. An audio commentary by film historian Lee Gambin, another one I haven't heard of, and film critic Jarrett Gahan. French and English audio. They heard you loud and clear about the dubbing, Brian.
Yeah, seriously.
And a theatrical trailer. Next up, we have a couple by a couple. The Warlock's getting to me. We have a couple by Mondo Macabro.
Oh, that's another sound effect we're waiting for Paul to make for us too.
Mondo Macabro. They hadn't seen them in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they've been more macabro, I guess, than Mondo.
This one is called The Killer of Dolls, and if you look for it, you can't find it on IMDb because it also was known as Killing of the Dolls.
It's an AKA.
That took me forever to find that. I was like, what the heck is this movie? I can't find it. Yeah, The Killing of the Dolls, directed by Miguel Madrid, starring David Rocha, Emma DeSantis, and Helga Line.
It's not I'm a DeSantis? I thought he was telling me like that.
I'm a DeSantis.
I'm a DeSantis. I thought, no, okay.
A young man with a split personality kills women while wearing a creepy doll mask. Well, that sounds cool.
So I'll tell you right now, there almost when you read that description and you see the trailer, you almost get a slight tourist trap vibe with that. But the movie definitely does not look like that at all when you actually really see it. But it was.
I was hoping for more than what I got.
Yeah, although the trailer, as I put, the trailer looks like an opening to a circa 1980s television show like Heart to Heart, but with a weird killer with a creepy doll mask.
And as you noted here, it also shows way too much, including an extended chase scene, which tells you how the movie ends, basically.
Yeah, basically, it shows the whole ending, the whole chase, and the ending of the chase. So there's not even I got to see how this part develops. Oh, no, there it is. That's how.
Did I mention this is from 1975? I don't remember if I mentioned the year there, but actually has some great features though. Brand new 4K restoration, a Spanish audio track with new subtitles, a new interview with actor David Rocha, a new interview with Dr. Antonio Lazaro Ribol, author of the book Spanish Horror Film. New audio commentary by Kat Ellinger, new audio commentary by Robert Bonnell and Rodney Barnett. A unique reversible cover. I don't know why all these have reversible covers. It's such a weird concept.
This trend, I don't understand. But I tell you, Wilson, the best thing I found out about on this disc is that there's an interesting book that I want to read. That book of Spanish horror film. That might be interesting.
That would be interesting. This also has a collectible booklet with brand new writing on the film by Spanish film expert Ismael Fernandez. And then lastly, from Mondo Macabro, we have...
Oh, wow. This one.
Woman Chasing the Butterfly of Death from 1978. And I'm going to just butcher these names. And it's a lot of Kims. Directed by Ki-young Kim, starring Ja-ak Kim, Jong-sho Kim, and Man Kim. So get ready for this summary. A dour student, young ghoul, as opposed to an old ghoul,
I know. I was going to say, is it an old...
crosses paths with an elderly book salesman obsessed with Hitler and Nietzsche, a 2,000-year-old female corpse, and a mad scientist. Young Gould...
That sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, doesn't it?
Yeah. Hitler, a 2,000-year-old female corpse, and a mad scientist walk into a bar. Yes. Young Gould wants to commit suicide, but the book salesman insists the human will even overcome biological death. Young Gould tests this by trying to kill him. Later, the corpse comes to life in the hope that Young Gould will impregnate her.
Okay, that trailer gave none of that, but then again, the trailer wasn't in English either. So... Yeah, did you get to watch this trailer?
I don't know what to think of this. Yeah, it's something.
So should I read my little notes on this
Read your notes, yeah.
So I wrote, this one seemed like a Korean nature film, but one that features a guy who's trying to hang himself and is apparently talked out of it by a talking skeleton. Oh, and later there's a talking decapitated head. That's what I got out of that trailer. Oh, and then but also in the middle there you just keep seeing these scenes of people running for chasing butterflies with a net. So not a net like it's a net footicello, but with a net, like a butterfly net. So.
It's something to see. We'll just put it that way.
And the music playing in the background is very weird, and then it eventually has some vocals, but it's a very bizarre trailer.
Yeah. This one has a brand new 2K restoration, a new audio commentary by Kenneth Brorson and Paul Quinn of the What's Korean Cinema podcast.
Yeah.
New interview.
I'd like to know, in fact, because...
After seeing this trailer, I really want to know.
Yeah, I really want to know.
New interview with actress Lee Hwa-si. New interview with...
not even in this movie, apparently.
New interview with producer Young Yin Woo. New interview with cinematographer Koo Young Mo. And new interview with Korean cinema expert Darcy Paquette on the career of Kim Ki-young.
Is that like their version of Darcy the Mail?
I guess. I don't know.
Darcy Paquette. Actually, that's who we need to talk to if she's the expert.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely
on
the
this.
expert.
Maybe she can explain what the hell is going on in this movie.
Okay, guys. So before we get to our main feature, as we introduced at the top of the show, this is In Search of Darkness, which is a horror documentary on 80s horror. We have a very, very special treat for you guys. We managed to get an interview with the writer and director of this documentary, David A. Weiner, and who's had a fantastic career in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, and has put together this documentary that we're going to talk about after the interview. So let's roll that right now, Brian. I think you guys are going to absolutely love this.
Yeah, this guy has gotten so much great history in the film industry in general and horror history. So yeah, you guys are really going to enjoy this. And then it'll be great because then we'll talk about the movie right after you hear the interview, because if you hear this interview, your appetite is going to be whet to find out more about this documentary.
All right, so let's roll that right now.
Okay, so we have a very special guest tonight on the show. This is someone who we're really excited to talk to, especially after seeing all of his contributions to the genre and his absolutely amazing documentary, In Search of Darkness, which is a journey into iconic 80s horror. So welcome to the show, David A. Weiner.
Hello. Welcome to me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, David, I know you've been in the industry a long time, doing a lot of various jobs. So tell us a little bit about where and how you started and some of the jobs you've had in the industry over the years.
Wow. So many and so many years. I was a towel wrangler on Castaway with Tom Hanks. That's one of the more obscure ones I've done. I was a stand-in for James Russo on a movie starring Deborah Harry called After Midnight, I think it was ultimately called. I was a location manager on the Full Moon feature Demonic Toys, which was Dangerous Toys when I did that. Oh. I've been on a .com poster boy for .com booms and busts for years, and I spent 13 years at Entertainment Tonight, and then I was the executive editor of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine after that. These days, when I'm not making 4+ hour documentaries on 80s horror movies, I'm an entertainment journalist, and I write for The Hollywood Reporter and other outlets.
Oh, wow. So, out of all those jobs, do you have any favorite moments? Like, I have a particular one I want to ask you about that I read, but I'll let you go first to see what are some of your favorite moments. Maybe that'll be in there.
Favorite moments in my career leading up to this podcast? Let's see.
Well, yeah.
I worked on I'll tell you when I knew that I made it in Hollywood. I was on a production assistant on a movie called The Nutty Nut. And it was a straight-to-video comedy that Adam Rifkin came on and finished up the directing chores on that. And it culminates in this ultimate slapstick pie-throwing fight. And Tracy Lords, the former adult star, was in that movie, and I got to be right off camera lobbing pies at Tracy Lords, and it was at that moment that I realized I had made it in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
It's been downhill ever since.
Oh, no, not when people get to see your documentary. But the one I was going to ask you about, and I read this online, it said that I guess that you had broken the news about, because we're big Star Wars fans here, so we understand that you broke the news that Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford were returning about a year before it was officially announced?
Yeah, because Mark Hamill told me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, that's when I was at Entertainment Tonight, and Mark Hamill was in this amazing movie called Sushi Girl. And if you've never seen it, he puts in this just amazing, delectable performance as kind of a Joker-ish character. And it's this movie called Sushi Girl, where you have a bunch of criminals who return years after a heist gone wrong to find out who was the rat. And they're at a sushi bar over a naked girl covered with sushi, pretty much torturing people to figure out who did it. And so I did some press with him. I had met him at Comic-Con, and that was the first time I ever met him. And they came back to me when the Blu-ray came out, when I was at Entertainment Tonight as well. And they said, hey, you want to talk to Mark again? And my first thought was, well, of course, I'll talk to Mark anytime, but I kind of covered this already. But they had just announced Disney had just bought Lucasfilm. And they announced that they were going to make some Star Wars movies, a trilogy, and that's it. Now, everyone talk about it while we figure it out. And so I figured, well, I could ask Mark Hamill about it. And he probably either has nothing to say because he doesn't know, or B, he can't say anything. But I said, after we talked about Sushi Girl, I said, well, Lucasfilm just got purchased by Disney. They've got a whole trilogy coming out. What can we hope to see Luke Skywalker in this upcoming trilogy, or at least the next movie? And he said, well, yeah, you'll definitely see me. You're going to see all of us. We're all coming back. And then he just talked to me for 15 minutes about, we've pretty much all but signed on the dotted line, and I'm talking to the writers and Kathleen Kennedy, and here's what I'd like to see in a new movie, and go retro and practical effects. And here's what I think it would be cool to see in all those anthology spin-off movies they're going to make. Hey, how about a Salacious Crumb movie? Let's do that. And anyway, I got off the phone with him, and I just thought to myself, I don't know if anyone else knows this. And I did a little quick search, and I saw that he hadn't done any other interviews, and no one was writing about this. So I wrote the story, and it broke worldwide. And it wasn't until a year later that they announced that, officially that everyone was coming back. So it was definitely a sweet little thing for me, especially awesome, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Oh, nice. We can relate. We are huge as well.
That's amazing. So David, since we are a horror podcast, we have to shift to horror. As much as I would love to talk Star Wars for the next.
Sure.
Of course, I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot, but having you won awards for Famous Monsters of Filmland and your work with that, what got you into horror?
What got me into horror was watching monster movies when I was a kid. I used to watch the 4:30 movie in the afternoon in the tri-state area in New York. They would have Monster Week. And
I remember those, yes. Yeah. I grew up there too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I grew up there too, so that brought back a flood of memories and excitement for me when you just said that. So
well, it was a real treat because I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but Alex Winter is in our film, and he used to perform as a kid on Broadway. So he grew up in the same area in the same era that I was there, and we totally geeked out over the 4:30 movie during our interview. But that was kind of like the foundation for me, because they'd have Planet of the Apes week, they'd have Monster Week with kaiju, that wasn't a word back then, but giant Japanese rubber monsters and Godzilla movies and Gamera and so on.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Universal horror movies, but it really wasn't, and so I was a huge Famous Monsters fan. And Fangoria comes around in the early '79, I think, right? And in the early '80s, it explodes, and my foundation kind of aligns with American Werewolf in London, because that was the first film that I got to see in the theater that absolutely blew me away, where not only was I scared and enthralled and laughing and crying and running away at the end, but I wanted to know, how did they do it? It really piqued my interest. And I learned about Rick Baker and the special effects magicians of the industry and how they would pull this stuff off. And I wanted to know more. And that kind of helped. Between that and Star Wars, those were the two films that really pointed me in a path towards Hollywood, of finding out how films are made and wanting to entertain people in some way, shape, or form, in the way that I really felt entertained by these films that I was watching.
That's awesome. I mean, I kind of had the same feeling, except I went over there to be a epic collector of movies instead, because I had no talent to get to Hollywood.
To that point, you don't necessarily need talent. You need drive, and you need tenacity, and you need to be knowledgeable, and you need to be a good person. But all those things aside, I think any fan who loves Hollywood as much as any other fan who loves Hollywood, if they really wanted to make a go at it, there's a place for you here, out here in Los Angeles. And I always declared, if I'm not making movies, I want to be working on movies or writing about movies or working in entertainment, and that will always bring me joy. And that's kind of what I've done.
See, that's great to be in something that you love so much that that you've always wanted to do, and now you're there. Actually, Tim, I'm going to skip the next question that we had here, because basically, David, you kind of answered it in terms of what were some of your favorite types of films. But so I figured let's get to this now, this amazing documentary that you have coming out called In Search of Darkness. So how long did you want to make this, and when did you get the idea for it?
Well, the original idea of this it's the brainchild of Robin Block, who's the executive producer of the project, and he's over the pond, across the pond in the UK, and he came up with the idea that he wanted to have a celebration of one of the most amazing decades in horror. At the same time, he started production on In Search of the Last Action Heroes, which is an 80s centric action documentary on that genre. And he thought, how cool would it be to focus on the horror genre entirely? And so literally about a calendar year ago, in September, I got wind of this project that was about to kickstart in October of 2018 through another friend of mine, one of the producers on the project, Jessica Dwyer, who I met on the set of The Conjuring 2 at a reproduction of the Amityville Horror House. Wow. And I enlisted her to write a bunch of stuff for me for Famous Monsters, and she would write for Horror Hound and so on. And she said, David, this is such a cool project. You got to come over and at least talk to Robin Block and find out what's going on. And I came on as an advisor, and ultimately was given just a silver platter opportunity based on my experience as an entertainment journalist and as an interviewer over the years at Entertainment Tonight and Famous Monsters, and even before that, to tackle this subject for Robin. And it's just been a roller coaster ride of fun and fandom ever since.
So, David, one thing I was so impressed with this documentary, and the thing that horror fans are just going to absolutely love, is the massive number of celebrities and industry folks that you got to speak and interview on this documentary. How did you go about finding these people, getting them to agree to the documentary, choosing which films you're going to use, that kind of thing. Tell us about that process.
That was a very interesting and partially organic process. When I came on, there was a handful of names who were already attached, which really helped the Kickstarter process. And then it was kind of a snowball effect after that. And, people would say, oh, if these people are involved. And we were putting together some really, really impressive art and an amazing trailer to sort of sell the look and feel of this. And I think a lot of people caught wind that this is something special. And especially when the Kickstarter was doing extremely well, we met our goal in 2 days, and then just kept on going. So when it came to getting the people who were in this film, I wanted to get a really good cross section that was representative of the genre, where people who were part of this process, where they were a writer, a director, composer, special effects guru, experts in the field, YouTube creators who have huge horror followings and introducing a whole new generation to these films, especially the films of the 80s. I think with a nice cross-section collective of having these people in, I think I could best tell my story, which I ultimately, working with Robin's idea was he wanted to go year by year and tackle as many movies as possible throughout the decade. And I helped to structure a narrative where in between these timeline years, we tackle more specific topics, whether it's the pop culture and politics of the 80s, the heroes or the villains and the final girl, the practical effects, the 3D revolution that was very short-lived in the 80s. On and on, the slasher subgenres like, the holiday horror movies. And I figure by doing that, I can craft questions where I can talk to all these people who are in this film, not only about their own projects, but their favorites and their perspective on the decade and the influence that it had and the type of movies that they loved and that influenced them. Lastly, the part of the question was, how do you get these people? I've been fortunate to be able to get a lot of good people for various projects, whether it was Entertainment Tonight, where they would all kind of come to me. I really kind of learned how to do it as the editor of Famous Monsters, to really reach out and get, chase down names and try and sell them on the idea and then enlist them. And it's always just an absolute victory to get someone to say yes and then just up. It's a real thrill. And so I knew some of these people from my Famous Monsters days. I knew some of these people from talking with them for Hollywood Reporter. I didn't know some of these people, but I put together, I think, a pretty effective pitch. And we went out to their homes. They came to us. And some people would recommend other people. And it was kind of like I said, kind of an organic experience to be able to secure so many people. And the only unfortunate element was that at a certain point, we just had to, draw the line and stop interviewing people, because I'd still be interviewing people to this day if I could, because there's so many people to talk to.
Oh, yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned those like the little mini segments in between the yearly segments. Because there was one that we loved about the home video stuff, because that was our generation growing up with that. And you had a shot in there that brought my childhood back, was that old Gerald cable box that had the little box.
Well, that's the kind that I didn't even have cable. All my friends did, but that was the cable box that everyone had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Tim, have you had that in your area? Because I grew up in New York.
We had something very similar, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah, because that was. I mean, talk about the way to turn cable. I mean, you had that little dial that you'd switch and the buttons, and it was great. But
part of the fun was these little triggers, these little emotional, nostalgic triggers that was just a pure joy for me to be able to just, pepper these things throughout the film, like the HBO guide that kind of pops up. Corey Taylor's talking about that, or literally just the the tangible pushing in of a VHS into a video cassette player. These are now like sense memories that people don't really actively do anymore. So if you see it, it just goes right to, you know, your center chakra of nostalgia.
Oh,
You know,
it
nostalgia
did.
chakra, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one thing I didn't answer that I wanted to answer real quick was that you said, how did I choose these films? Because there are so many, and for me as a completist, there's obviously just way more films than could be covered in even a 4 hour and 20-minute amount of time if you want to give, you know, everything at least some justice. And I just wanted to make sure that I got really well-known stuff, but also really obscure and eclectic stuff, and some in between, but also a nice cross-section of subgenres, whether it's body horror or slashers or holiday or really things with fantastical elements, you know, like you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and you know, Videodrome and Cronenberg, all that kind of stuff. The Thing, They Live, Christine. All these things are kind of the greatest hits, but if you could, you know, if I could put in The Burning and Basket Case, and, you know, even Cat People for some people is really an obscure title, or The Hunger. Those to me are some of my favorites. But I wanted to make sure that every single year, since we could only cover anywhere between, you know, 5, 6, 7, 10 movies each, I wanted to be able to get a nice buffet in there.
Yeah, when I was watching it,
you did.
I couldn't help but think you could take somebody that knew nothing about 80s horror and sit them down in front of this documentary, and it would be like a crash course where they could talk, you know, have intelligent dinner conversation about 80s horror just from watching this documentary. It covered so many things. But David, getting back to your point about the structure of the film, I was particularly impressed with, even though it is divided into years and there are some segments in there where we covered various topics, it never felt rigid. The structure, or it never felt like you were going through a sequence of years. I thought it felt very organic and almost like a conversation between horror fans of, you know, oh, what about this movie? Oh yeah, but what about this movie? And that film had that same kind of flow to me of people just sitting around talking horror. So even though there's that loose structure underneath, I don't think it ever felt rigid. I really enjoyed that about the documentary.
Well, thank you. I have to give a tremendous amount of credit to my editor, Samuel Way, who also lives in the UK. So I did this movie through computer over his shoulder by way of internet wires and ones and zeros. And but he did an amazing job in keeping this a nice taut, well-paced films. And he created a lot of the wonderful graphics that are in this film to keep things interesting and flowing and showing as well as telling. And we had a wonderful process where the biggest mountain to climb here was the more we assembled this, the longer it got, and the more we really wanted to cover. And we had to kill a lot of babies. I delivered a 5-hour cut, and even that fell short. And we had to make some very decisive incisions that still are painful to me. But you know, I'm glad that it felt organic. And one of the things that I think is really unique about this film is it does feel like a conversation. It does. You have John Carpenter, you have Joe Dante, you have Heather Langenkamp, but they're talking about their favorite films too. They're saying, I love this, or this made me laugh, or this made me cry, or, you know, Tom Holland saying, I saw that scene in Poltergeist where the clown, you know, grabs the kid from under the bed, and he said, I can see making a doll come to life and scare the crap out of people movie from this. You know, and so everyone kind of talks about standing on the shoulders of the folks who came before them, and it's a wonderful humanizing element to this whole process that I enjoyed.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to echo Tim's statement too. Like, as comprehensive as this was, it didn't feel like you were just sitting here watching an encyclopedia of horror. You got right in there with the industry people and the people that feel the same way about you. That horror fans feel about this stuff, and it was great. It felt like you were just part of their world, as part of the movies, part of the nostalgia. It was just, like I said, and I watched it all 4.5 hours straight through. I said I'm gonna be, and I could have watched easily 4 hours more.
Well, you win
It was
the
that
pot.
good.
You absolutely win. There's a trophy that I'm going to be sending in the mail because I know that's a tall.
It was great though. I loved it. But so another thing I want to talk about is, so Tim and I are huge fans. We mentioned this as a podcast. We love movie posters and box art, and so that's some of our greatest memories of going through the video store and seeing that. The poster art for this film is just, I love it. It's got this, it's simple but retro and just really cool. So I was going to ask you, if you could tell us a little about how you came up with that art for it, and also will there be shirts and if we can get one.
There are shirts that you can get, and that art predates me. That's one of the things where I came onto this project, and I had a lot of confidence in this project because there are two things that they had already done. Three things. So they had two different posters. There's the Graham Humphreys poster. So there's the kid sitting in front of the television. That's the key poster. And then Graham Humphreys did this wonderful spread of all these horror icons that's extremely colorful. And then they put together this amazing teaser trailer that just has I used to have the number, and now I can't remember, but close to probably 200 clips in it that really just sell the idea and the feel of what this movie was about. And so I think the art encapsulating the fan experience for this film is something that was an amazing selling point to me. And yes, you can get shirts, you can get posters, and everyone can go to 80shorrordoc.com starting October 7th, I do believe. And that's where you can get all this stuff. You can get packages, whether it's just the movie as a DVD or a Blu-ray or a digital download, but you could also get shirts and posters, and that's I think that's what we're offering. Soundtrack as well. The soundtrack is spectacular. If I do say so myself, that was another just absolute serendipitous joy. There's a band called Weary Pines, which are these two guys in the UK. Lots of talent coming out of the UK, and I listened to their stuff, and I had this goofy grin on my face, and I said, I have to look no further. This is it. These guys just capture the sort of synth feel of the 80s that a lot of the John Carpenter and a little taste of Giorgio Moroder, whether you're talking about the Phantasm soundtrack or you're talking about, just Halloween 3 soundtrack. They really just sort of, captured that feel and ambience and atmosphere that we were able to put in this film, and I think it brought it to the next level.
Nice. We'll definitely put that link in the show notes for you guys out there. And
yeah, you're gonna want that poster, that one with the kid sitting in front of the TV, because I love the little touch that there's literally a Nintendo Entertainment System on top of the VCR. Which what kid in that time period did not have that exact setup?
Well, I got to tell you, this kid is sitting in a dark room by himself, and that's pretty much all of us. We all were watching these movies too young. We were watching these movies before we really should have, but we had the exposure because we grew up in the cable and the VHS boom, where this stuff was beamed into our homes, or we could just go down the street, and half of these video clerks didn't care if you were underage getting a rated R movie. And so we got to be exposed to some amazing stuff, probably too early. And it really, I think, affected all of us. And that's why so many people look at this decade so fondly, because this is formative stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, David, are you going to take a break now, or you already got another project lined up?
Well, I have another project that I'm doing with Creator VC with Robin Block, and so we did In Search of the Last Action Heroes was the first one. We did In Search of Darkness, which is 80s horror films. Next up, I am going to be writing and directing In Search of Tomorrow, which is an 80s sci-fi movies film.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I think you guys might appreciate that.
Should we just write like the big blank check, because we're gonna have to buy all these things and all this merchandise for this stuff?
Make sure that there's a T-shirt for you in it.
Okay, sounds good.
You know, it's going to be a very similar yet different approach to this amazing decade of films that obviously made a huge, the Star Wars generation and the radical change that happened there. I'm excited to tackle that in a similar way.
Awesome. I mean, this just has me super excited, because I want to guarantee that it's going to be at least 4 hours long also, because I want to watch every bit of it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The In Search of Darkness originally was going to be about a 90-minute to a 2-hour film with a 3-hour director's cut if we hit our stretch goals. And ultimately, what happened after that was we found out that we now can go longer and get the blessing of the backers. Everyone said the longer the better, and because of that, we're encouraged to similarly, I can't enunciate anymore, be able to do the same thing for In Search of Tomorrow. So I can't promise how long it's going to be, but definitely encouraged by the response to In Search of Darkness.
Well, even though we are a horror podcast, we do love that genre as well. So feel free to keep us posted on that, and we'll help promote it the best we can. So
thank you. Yeah, well, I really appreciate not only your support and spreading the good word of In Search of Darkness, but the fact that you guys really, I'm happy that this was something that you enjoyed and it meant something to you, because at the end of the day, watch this movie in however many sittings, unless you want to win the prize for one sitting. And, but at the end of the day, I want people to just go and discover the movies that they loved and discover new ones after watching this one in the 80s horror genre.
Yeah, I texted Brian. He can vouch for this. I texted Brian about halfway through the documentary, and I said, I want to cry right now, but I'm not going to. Because, just seeing all this stuff brought back such nostalgia, and the documentary just hit home on so much stuff that I love, that it kind of gives you those emotions of like, man, this is like talking directly to me.
I'm so glad. It wasn't the intention to emotionally drain people, but I'm happy.
In a good way.
Of this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, these things mean a lot, doesn't it? So where it's like, this was, if there was I told Tim, I said, Tim, because I watched it first just because of timing issues. I told him, I said, Tim, this documentary was made for us. It really was. Wait till you see this.
Well, I wanted it to be fun. I mean, this is the most important thing about any documentary, is that there are plenty of documentaries out there that can be informative and interesting, but they're not necessarily an enjoyable watch. And especially as we got longer and longer, I wanted this to be fun. I wanted people to have a goofy grin of recognition as you're watching it, and seeing the scenes that you loved, the moments that you weren't sure about or didn't know about, learning things that are new from the people who were there and part of it, but also confirming things you already knew. So I wanted some recognition and information and education at the same time. And overall, I wanted it to be fun. And I hope what we've delivered.
Oh yeah, you definitely had. So I guess finally, why don't we just, if you want to wrap up and let us know where listeners can find out more about you, find out what your projects are, and then we'll put the documentary link though in the show notes too. But all the other place they can find you, like Twitter or Instagram.
Sure. Well, you can find everything about 80s horror doc at the handle is at 80s 80s horror doc. Whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and you go to 80shorrordoc.com to obtain this film, and it's going to be a limited time. We're only going to offer it until Halloween. And then we're going to be looking at other distribution avenues, and we can't announce anything just yet. But in between that, you could ultimately find me and my stuff. I have a site called itcamefromblog.com, and the handles on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook are at itcamefromblog. And that's sort of, I consider myself a bit of a nostalgia curator, and it's fun genre stuff that made me smile when I was a kid, and pop culture references and a look back at a lot of stuff in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And my other handle on Twitter, you could interact with me at Tiki Ambassador. Don't ask me how I got that name.
All right, sounds
That's
good,
awesome.
David. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real
Yes.
treat to talk to you. And again, I can't say enough good things about the documentary. You guys are going to just absolutely love this thing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you guys, and I appreciate all the interest, not only in this but the other stuff as well. And I'm having fun, so I guess I hope you guys are having fun too. Keep on with your amazing podcast.
Oh,
All right,
thank you so much.
All right, have a good night.
Take care.
Okay, Brian, again, I am just so thrilled that David was able to come on and talk about the movie and talk about some of the stuff he's done in the past, because as I was researching in preparation for the interview, I was just blown away by the career this guy's had and the celebrities he's interviewed and all the stuff that he's done, and also his passion and love for 80s horror, which was just fantastic because it speaks right to my heart.
Oh my God, it felt like it was like, yeah, what he was saying felt like stuff that we talk about and think about all the time.
Exactly.
Like, it felt like we it almost like he had my childhood, though. There was some of the things, I think we mentioned the 4:30 movies. Like, I think I mentioned this on the show, like, but more so on the Thanksgiving ones. But they used to have, that's right, like, he reminded me, they used to have the Godzilla week, which I loved. We had come home, and I remember Wednesday seemed to always have my favorite one, which was that one where there was the little kid, and he talked to, he was kind of picked on, and he would go to Monster Island through this little, like computer thing he rigged up in his closet, and he'd pull it out, and then he would meet Godzuki, which was Godzilla's kid. Remember,
Yeah.
he couldn't blow the fire. It was that one. I think it was retitled Godzilla's Revenge, but there was a different title when it was on back then. And that was my favorite one of all time. But they would have a whole week of Godzilla movies on at 4:30. So I'd get home from school and I'd have a snack, and then probably ignore my homework, and then sit there in front of the TV till from 4:30 to 6:30 to watch whatever Godzilla movie was on. So
Yeah.
that brought back a lot of memories, and which is the perfect interview based off of what this documentary did, because it's the same thing. It brought back all our memories of horror, which we'll discuss. I mean, like, in all honesty, this may be one of the most challenging things to discuss at the same time, because this documentary, we were saying it in the interview, but it clocks in over 4 hours. 4 amazing hours, though. It's like you don't want them to end, and you want another 4 hours when you're done with it, because I feel like as great as and comprehensive as it wasn't enough. I wanted more.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the structure during the interview, but basically the structure of the documentary is it starts out, obviously, year by year, but interspersed in between the years are topics ranging from, sex in 80s horror, and
It was the home video segment, which was one of my favorites.
The home video segment. There's all these little cutaway topic featurettes that the celebrities are interviewed about. And like I was telling David, you kind of get this organic flow where it doesn't feel like you're just watching an encyclopedia of here's 1980, blah, 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 blah. Here's 1981, blah, 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 blah. It never feels like that. It feels, I mean, at times I wasn't even realizing that they were going year by year. There were times in the movie where that just didn't cross my mind, because the conversation flowed so well, which again is just a testament to great editing. I thought that was really fantastic about the movie. And one of the things that's also great is the number of celebrities and industry insiders and horror fans that they got for this documentary. It's just freaking amazing. I think Brian, you took really good notes, but I think we had like over 40, almost 50.
Yeah, I think I may have missed one or two. I was trying to, because it was, I was getting so caught up in the documentary, so it was hard to kind of take some notes about it. And I had this like 8 pages of scrambled and scribbled notes on there, but and like literally it's like arrows pointing to different. But because I knew I wanted to discuss this and try and just to have all the content listed, because there's so much there that I didn't want to miss anything, in discussing it. But obviously we can't, we don't want to go into too many details, because we want you guys to discover this too. And even if I could tell you it, until you see it and you get that same feeling that he apparently tried to which he told us in the interview that he tried to capture for the fans. I mean, you'll see that he does, because anyone, especially people that grew up and there was the right time in the 80s, you will just there's this feeling that will hit you of like of this nostalgia. Like I know I had said in the interview about the cable box, like that one just like brought me back instantly to when I first got cable in my room that time, and it was like this magical gateway I had to everything, and I could see boobs for the first time at my disposal, and I could watch Friday the 13th at 2 a.m. if I kept it down low and no one knew,
Yeah.
It was like stuff like that. It was like, and to see, but what was more impressive about it is to see that all these people that were part of the industry had the same affection for it, and just you could tell that it was that they loved every bit about it, about being in the industry, enjoying the industry as well. I mean, and we can't name everybody in it, but you get the creme de la creme. I mean, you're getting Tom Atkins, who I will say had that best line where he was talking about how he almost made the joke that everyone jokes, how Tom Atkins, gets all the women, and how he, after like 3 lines of dialogue, got to bed Jamie Lee Curtis in The Fog, and then he goes, "It's because I'm smooth," and it's like a typical Tom Atkins, and like everything you love about Tom Atkins, he gives you in a documentary. He gives it to you, and I think Joe Bob had one of the classic lines when they were doing just a general overview clips of the 80s. Joe Bob had a line that cracked me up. He says, "They just didn't tease their hair. They bullied it." It's like, it just, so you get all these people that you love, and you see how real they are, and it's just, oh my God, it's just every little bit. And that was like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That thing I just told you, those examples were in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked, I don't think I brought up during the interview, was they used the actual VHS box art. So as they're talking about the movies, they're zooming in and you're just seeing all this artwork. And I just absolutely love that. I'm so glad that because they could have just not had any graphics and just had it cut from scene to scene. But before they talk about any movie, you're just getting the zoom in on the box art. I absolutely love that part of it.
Yeah, just everything. It seems like every choice they made was correct.
Yeah, and one thing I will mention, it's not like one of those documentaries where you have a voiceover talking. In 1987, Nightmare on Elm Street, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I don't think there's
no
voiceovers. At all.
This is told all through the words of the celebrities and industry people and fans that they interviewed. And I don't think they ever... One of the things I also liked is they never lingered too long on any one thing. It's got such a great pacing to it. I was never bored.
Right.
Like Brian said in the interview, he watched all 4 hours. I watched almost all 4 hours in one sitting. I think I cut out at about 3 hours, 45 minutes, and then went back to watch the rest of it. But I just wasn't bored. It was just fascinating to me. So I think you guys are going to find the same thing.
Yeah, no, it is so far from boring. I mean, if you're, and what's great is there's not any like even dull topics or dull moments at all. It's like if anything, there like literally my only criticism is it's not 8 hours. Yeah, because I could watch 4 more hours easily.
And one thing I will say is I thought I was pretty good on my 80s horror, but there are some titles in here even I had not seen yet that. Granted, most of the stuff I had heard of, even the ones I hadn't seen, I had at least heard of. But there were some that were definitely like major gaps in my 80s horror watching history that I really need to go back and fill. And actually, I'm going to use this documentary as a chance to use some of these movies for my horror movie challenge to go back and catch some of these that I had not seen before, because I felt really bad watching this going, oh my God, this is considered a staple of 80s horror and I haven't seen it yet. That's unforgivable.
And did you notice something that was great? Is so many of these we had on Civil Gore as a feature film.
That's true.
If you look at the list of movies that were on here, so many of them we've had, or either as a feature film, or part of a slaycation, or just discussed in depth, to the side. And I'm almost thinking we should make sure that we use this list as future topics for the show, our own show, because I think we should get some of these as a feature, as a feature film, because and there's some we actually do have in the plans for it. We just, we try and do the little special ones and stuff every once in a while. But and some of the ones that they went over, you know what was great is some of when the contributors on it and the actors and the industry people, and they don't just do actors and directors and producers. They have art people, they have magazine people, they have the guy from Fright Rag.
Yeah,
they have a lot of fans. And what was cool is they find the same things we find out, and they discuss the same things us horror fans discuss amongst ourselves. It's funny just because just the other day when the KK Sam did Night of the Creeps, and they were cracking up the whole time at Tom Atkins' Thrill Me.
Yeah.
Well, they were talking about that in this documentary. Like when they brought up Night of the Creeps, some of the people were going, Thrill Me, because it's it shows that they are true fans too, and they're just not in the genre or in this world. They've absorbed the world to be fans as well.
Yeah. And Brian, I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was watching this documentary, part of it was some validation, because you're always your own worst critic. And doing this podcast, even though I've watched literally probably thousands of horror movies at this point.
Right.
Some part of you feels like, do I really know as much as I think I do about horror? Am I really that big a fan? Am I really and you look around at other people and go, oh, well, he knows way more about horror movies than I do, even though I do this podcast, because there's always that self-doubt that creeps in. And when I was watching this movie, and I'm watching these people talking about the same things that I'm thinking, and they've been watching the same movies I'm watching, and I realize, no, Tim, you really are this is your thing. These are your people. You can stop the doubt. This is exactly, like I told Brian, as I was watching it, I was like, it felt like home. These are the people that are talking and watched and did the same things that I did growing up. So that was kind of a fun validation.
Yeah, and there was even the segment where it's called Misfits United, I think was the title of the segment, where about the horror fan base. And, you obviously, this kind of documentary, you can't, they all said it, that they know that the fans are important. And, the fact that, the horror community, I found, Tim and I are part of several communities, I'd like to say. It's we're part of the big roller coaster community, and that seems to be more polarizing than anything sometimes. And, and I find myself in the Star Wars things all the time. People are doing that. But horror, there's some sort of more of a camaraderie, and than any other fan base of something I've seen, because I think horror always had that negative connotation by a lot of people. So when you found other people that like horror, you felt, like you said, validated, but in your case, you were talking about validation, about being knowledgeable, but there you felt the knowledgeable, it's okay to like a horror movie. A lot of people like these,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's, so many people just love not only the same movies, but the same scene, the same line, the same character as you. So, that's why this documentary is I think something that not only do you need to watch, you need to own, you need to watch over and over again. And you will I guarantee you, everyone will get that similar feeling of nostalgia, whether or not you grew up in the 80s or not, actually, because, you're still going to have that moment of what, when you discovered your fandom for horror, or what brings you back to when you started being a fan. And it's whether or not they consciously made sure at every moment they were going to try and capture that, they did it anyway. Like Tim said, organically. It flowed organically. Those feelings came out organically from this documentary.
Yeah, it was kind of cool too, because when I was growing up, the person I watched horror movies with was my brother, because we were the ones that we would go to the video store and pick up these VHS titles, and we'd go through every franchise: Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, whatever my mom would let us rent, which was pretty much anything. We would go through them. So he was the guy I watched horror movies with. But there was this pretty big gap where I didn't really have anybody there outside of my brother. There wasn't really it wasn't like friends at school that I taught horror with, or anybody in this outside community. And again, you didn't have the internet back then either, so you couldn't as easily make those social connections. So it was not until, when I got much older before I really understood how big and how embracing the horror community was. So that was kind of cool to see these people talking about 80s horror because at the time when I was going through and living in the 80s horror, I didn't know these people existed. In my mind, I'm the only person that rents these tapes.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anybody else that rents them,
Yeah, and it really is like, I can't wait for you guys to see this when it's available. And in the interview they gave, he gave the places where to get it, and we'll include that in the show notes, and of course we'll retweet out any more information on it. But it's like, and it's funny, it's like as soon as I told Tim, and I was dead serious when I can't remember if this made the interview cut or when we were just quickly chatting afterwards about it, but where I told Tim as soon as I was watching it, it's about maybe like 25 minutes in, and I texted him, I said, because I had to watch it first just based off my travel and time, and I said, Tim, this documentary was made for us. This is the biggest Us documentary ever.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like,
it might be it might be the definitive 80s horror doc. It might be one of the definitive horror docs. Period. I wouldn't even hesitate to say that. Yeah, yeah, because so many documentaries. There's great documentaries. Crystal Lake Memories. I mean, these great big documentaries about
Never Sleep Again.
Yeah, particular franchises, but I can't think of another horror documentary I've personally watched that covers such a breadth of horror movies in such an entertaining way. So yeah, fantastic.
Right. And that's why it actually, we actually had to, that's why this episode is, you're hearing this on Monday and not our usually Friday date, because we were actually, thanks to Heather, who had sent us this, the screener for this, it's debuted over the weekend at Beyond Fest, so there was kind of an embargo on it, so we wanted to, and we just knew when we saw it, it was like, we don't want to push this another week. We want to get this out there as soon as humanly possible. We could talk about this because that's how excited we were about it. So,
all right. So, Brian, let's get to our beer pairing. I think we'll leave the rest of the documentary up to you guys to just experience for yourselves, because it would be no good to. I don't. Like I said, we could sit there and list everybody in the documentary, but that takes away the fun of it, because part of the fun is just never knowing who's going to pop up in this movie. I think that's part of the great fun of it.
And there's such a wide variety, and there's some usuals which you expect, but there's also some that you don't expect, and it's great. Yeah. It's just fantastic. So as for the beer pairing, I thought, so now I'm treating this beer pairing as if you're about to sit down and watch this documentary in full, and that's the way I wanted to do the beer pairing. So I decided to come up with 4 beers, one for every hour of this documentary. It's a little over 4 hours, so if you choose to have a 5th beer, go right ahead. But I think it clocks in just under 4.5 hours.
Yeah, just under 4.5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to kind of do some beers. One of them I think we might have used on a previous podcast, but that's okay. It's a documentary. It's a retrospective of 80s horror history. So I think we can skip that rule of not repeating a beer pairing. Hour 1, I decided. Especially because in that first hour, it kind of goes over this genre actually a lot. And that's Slasher by Piddle Brewery. It's out of England. And it's 5.10%. And here's the little description. It says, "Don't snicker at this blonde with attitude. Lighthearted with a fun name and a bubbly nature. Slasher also has a wheaty kick that lingers long after gulp." So Slasher, I think, is perfect for that first hour, because because especially that 80s, the beginning of the 80s was all slasher, and there was always a blonde being chased. So blonde, that was a great beer pairing.
That was great, yeah.
So hour number 2, I'm gonna go to a, since it's horror movies are always associated with Halloween. I'm going to make the next one. It's Brains, a pumpkin ale for zombies. And that's by Springhouse Brewing Company out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Its ABV is 7.80%. And here's their description. Our pumpkin ale is brewed with a generous amounts of real pumpkin blended into the mash. The subtle French pumpkin flavor is enhanced by the addition of a touch of traditional autumn spices and sweet dough. That's really interesting, actually. Thus creating a beer with an orange-amber color, warm pumpkin aroma, a bold malt center, and a crisp finish. We are proud to offer you a balanced and delectable fall treat suitable for zombies. And Mr. Autumn, which is Tim's pseudo.
Yeah, it's my alter ego, Mr. Autumn.
Yeah, it's his alter ego, yes. And hour number 3, I thought, because actually this movie I think might have been discussed also in hour number 3, but also because they kind of went through these kind of Halloween movies around that time, and it was Pumpkinhead by Shipyard Brewing out of Portland, Maine, which is a brewery I actually had a chance to visit once.
I think I've actually had this one, actually.
Yes, I have had this beer, and it's 4.5%, so it's a little lighter. You know, you're getting in an hour 3, you're really enjoying this documentary. You want to get too sloshed, so you want to ease up a bit, because you're getting the finale hour here coming up. And so I'll read to you this one. And this has got an interesting little tag to this description. So it says, Pumpkinhead is a crisp, refreshing wheat ale with delightful aromatics and subtle spice flavor. To celebrate fall season, we enhance the pumpkin flavor with a proprietary blend of spices, including cinnamon and nutmeg. A proper pint of Pumpkinhead is served in a pint glass rimmed with sugar and cinnamon, which I've had it that way, and often accompanied by a shot of spiced rum or vanilla vodka.
Oh, my gosh.
And here's the interesting thing. So they added that you can go onto their site and get these recipes. So it says, spice up your Pumpkinhead with these Pumpkinhead drink recipes or try cooking with it. And it says, here are a few of our favorite Pumpkinhead recipes. They have a Pumpkinhead cupcakes, Pumpkinhead pancakes, which we will not be serving when we're there because the kids will be enjoying it. Pumpkinhead pumpkin pie, Pumpkinhead whoopie pie. And if you ever had a pumpkin whoopie pie, oh my God, those are insane. Pumpkinhead chili or Pumpkinhead orange cranberry sauce.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I think you guys all need to check out Shipyard's website and get these recipes. I may invest in some of these myself, as these sound good. And finally, to cap off this documentary, I had to go with Tim and my favorite overall horror-themed beer. Of course, that's Pumpkin. By Southern Tier in Lakewood, New York. So it's a great way to finish off this just incredible documentary.
And it will finish you
one
off.
Of your favorite beers.
8.6%.
Yes, it's strong. So, and here's their description. It says, All Hallows Eve is the time of year when spirits can make contact with the physical world and when magic is most potent. It is thought that we harness this magic to brew our powerful pumpkin ale. Not so, but it is with great respect to the magic of their trade that our brewers produce this fine beer. Take a whiff of this complex ale, and your journey has just begun. At first sip, a magical spell will bewitch your taste buds. Yet another victim enraptured by the pumpkin.
Very apt description. That is still my favorite, overall favorite pumpkin beer.
Yes, same here. And what a great way to finish the documentary. So that's what I implore you all to guys do. You know, if you can't find all these beers, that's fine. But grab a couple of 3 or 4 beers. Just sit back one night when this documentary is released or you buy it, and just let yourself get brought into that world again and go back in time, and you will just every emotion you'll have will come flowing out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, so let's get to our triple threat. I don't know if we got any answers on this one, Brian.
No, we got a lot of correct.
Oh, we
ones,
did?
actually.
Okay, I didn't see them.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, a lot of people got this one actually. So I thought it was a lot harder. Cody guessed it today. Cody was the last one, I think, to guess it today. Sorry, Cody, I didn't mean to single you out as the last one. I say last, you're the most recent.
Yeah,
that's better. And so she said it was an easy one. So now she's inspired me. So wait till you guys see the one for this week, but. We'll go over.
I think I would have gotten this one if I had not known the answer. I think this would one I could probably tell.
Right. I think this one wasn't as hard as I first thought
it
was. I thought I was craftier than I was, but it wasn't.
So we were, of course, looking for an actor or actress, and the answer was Heather Langenkamp. So clue number 1, my first film was in a huge 80s ensemble cast, yet my scenes were cut from the final version. Heather was in the classic The Outsiders with a who's who of 80s stars, yet her scenes were cut from the film.
And actually, I think it was Johnny had said, he had wrote in, he said that was one of the clues that got him because he had just watched I think that it was the Nightmare documentary or a bonus feature on one of the discs where she had mentioned it. She said she was so glad to be a Nightmare on Elm Street because her original movie, when she was in The Outsiders, she got cut.
Oh, now see, the second one is the one that would have helped clue me in, and the third one would have sealed it. But clue number 2 was, luckily, my next theatrical film put me on the map, although it was a nightmare. Of course, Nightmare being a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street, where she played Nancy Thompson. And clue number 3, I've played a coach's daughter, a real-life Olympian, and even played myself. Heather starred as one of Coach Lubbock's 8 children on Just the 10 of Us. And that is the clue that would have sealed it for me because I loved Just the 10 of Us. That was my favorite.
Yes, I did too. Is that guilty pleasure?
It was a guilty pleasure. I loved it. Played Nancy Kerrigan in the TV movie Tanya and Nancy, The Inside Story, which I also saw. And played herself, of course, in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So that was a great one.
Yeah, and it's funny. So Just the 10 of Us actually had 2 Elm Street ladies from in that because I think it was Brooke Theus. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. She was the one that got turned into the bug.
Oh, okay.
She was one of his other daughters. So that was a little interesting. There's a lot of interesting. A lighthearted family sitcom had some good ties to Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's funny. All right, so this week we're looking for another actor or actress, and listen up because this one is quite a bit trickier.
Yeah, this one. Do you think this is too cruel? This one?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to leave it up to you guys to decide if this one's a little harsh, but I don't know. You can still get it.
I think it's gettable. I think it's gettable. Yes.
All right. Clue number 1. My first acting role was on a TV show, and I hope everyone remembers it. Clue number 2. I once had a German rock band write a song about me. And clue number 3. Although I have spread cheer in a number of my film roles, I don't really care for artificial intelligence or astronomical events. Who am I?
I think there's one clue there that really could narrow it down.
Yeah.
I won't tell you which one this week because, according to Cody, my triple threats are too easy. So I'm not even going to give you any help.
All right. So what do we have for our Zubmundo this week?
Okay. Let's see. All right, Tim. You know the drill. I'm starting to spin
all right,
the book.
And stop.
You say
stop,
when.
Stop.
Okay. Oh boy, do we have a good one.
Oh, nice.
Okay. This is a good one today. This is. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Tim? I'm ready for a challenging one. Give me a challenging one.
Oh, this one. Well, this one. This is challenging, man. Okay. Would you rather eat a shot glass full of live wasps?
What's this all about eating stuff?
I know. Oh, wait to your other choice. Or eat a shot glass.
What?
Yes, those are your choices.
So you can either eat the wasp inside the shot glass.
That's how I'm
taking it. Or you
taking
can eat an actual shot glass.
Right. And I don't know if this helps you in your decision, but one of the facts they give you is approximately 50 people die every year in the U.S. as a result of insect stings.
Well, now, can I kill the wasp first and eat a shot glass full of dead wasps? Because that's very important.
Well, it does say full of live wasps.
Oh, it says full of live wasps.
Yes, yeah, so it says full of live wasps. So I'm taking you can't cheat your way out by that way. Because it says, I think, if it just said wasps, I could say, oh, well, you can kill them first. But this one specifically says live wasps. And another one, if you want to know this, it says, of the stings resulting from a shot glass full of wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, or honeybees, the worst would be the hornets. So at least you're not eating the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it depends on how you... Like, if you just dump the shot glass full of wasps in your mouth, you're going to get just tore up.
Oh, yeah.
But if you could somehow, like, take a wasp and then, like, bite its head off real quick and kill it, and then eat it, you're okay.
Right. But remember now, when have you ever... First of all, when have you seen the like if one wasp is going after you, they're all gonna probably go after you. So you're gonna have to be super, super quick.
Well, like I don't even know how are these wasps even staying in a shot glass for one thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. Now granted, it doesn't say this, but I would assume that if one of the wasps decides to fly out of there and fly away, you're not responsible for eating that wasp. Like I don't think you need to hunt that one down. So. Yeah, but so maybe that's your
so
best
you set
bet.
the shot glass on the table. You wait till all the wasps fly out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, see, like Tim might
This
have
is
found
a hard
there.
one,
right? I told you.
I mean,
yeah, so
you could eat the shot glass, and there's people who have eaten glass, but that's very dangerous.
Right, and it takes a long
Yeah.
time. I've seen those people that eat the glass because they chew it up, and it probably take you 17 hours.
I mean,
to
I've
eat a shot
got
glass.
to go with the live wasps. I think I have to go with the wasp. Wasps.
Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing: as long as you're not allergic to wasps, yes, you will be in a lot of pain possibly, but also at some point, I think you might be numb from it if you get. So maybe I think that's your best bet. You might have to literally just do what you did, just try and chew as many as possible, bite down, because most likely the live wasp is not going to cut through one of your your throat.
If you're not allergic, you're not going
level.
to die. It's going to suck, but you're
No,
not going to die.
it'll
You
hurt.
could
It'll hurt.
conceivably
Yeah.
die from eating glass if it hits you
Right.
the wrong way. I mean,
Right. Oh yeah, and I think there'd be way more to I think they have to contend with, believe it or not, with just the glass than with the wasps, because
the wasps you don't really have
I
to
think
worry about coming out, but the glass you would.
Right. And so here's another little fact they have on here. It says in 1951, 17-month-old Mark Bennett, so a little baby, was stung 447 times by wasps and lived.
Oh my god!
He said, and it says a shot glass was not involved. Thank God. Although, if I was the child's parent, I think several shot glasses would be involved afterwards.
That's true.
So, wow, yeah.
Wow,
so
that was an entertaining one. I like that one.
That was a
That was
good
a
one,
great
yeah.
one.
And there's some great ones, and I was glad we finally got one of those, really tough ones, because I think we were getting some easy ones last time.
Now I want one that doesn't have to do with eating stuff.
I don't know. Should I give you a bonus one, or should we just
we'll
wait?
save it for next week, but I think we're
Okay.
good. So guys, definitely, again, check out this fantastic documentary, In Search of Darkness. We'll have all the show notes, I have all the links in the show notes and that kind of thing. And we'll be back next week with another cool show. I think we're going to have some recaps of my upcoming event to Busch Gardens Hallow Scream, which I'm very much looking forward to, and Brian's trip to Lake Compounce, which sounds phenomenal. I've got to get up there next year, so we'll have...
Yeah, and I do have some audio on that. I haven't listened to it yet to see if it's serviceable. It might just be our good friend Aunt Sue screaming most of the time, but I will, kind of like our Frostbite one, but I did try and get audio, mostly because I didn't think it was going to come out, but mostly just so because it's such an extended, it's like a 40-minute haunt. It's... there's a lot to kind of take, so I kind of more got the audio to hopefully try and piece and remember every step. I mean, I tried to take quick pictures and all the audio just to see if I could grab as much to recall as possible, because it's a lot.
Yeah, I can't wait. So we're diving right into haunt season next week, so you guys will be sure to tune in. No Halloween Horror Nights this year, but we're going to make up for it with some good haunt coverage.
Yes. Yeah, we got a couple of interesting episodes for October, I think, too, because we have a surprise one, which I'm not going to mention yet, which is a first ever for Civil Gore, coming up probably towards the end of October. So we'll start teasing that one maybe in a little bit, but we're not going to tell you what it is yet.
All right, guys. So we'll see you back here next week. Check out that documentary and have a blast.
Wow.